And away we go, episode 1270 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Friday, February 27th, 2026. It is the day after we, at the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, had measurements for defensive linemen, linebackers, and kickers. Don't forget about the kickers. The two most notable items relevant to the Washington Commanders, who have the number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. A, University of Miami edge defender Rueben Bain Jr., yes, has short arms. B, Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles has outstanding physical traits for a linebacker. Bain, he registered an arm length of a mere 30 7/8 inches. Understand that would be the shortest arm length for an edge defender taken in the first round of an NFL draft since at least 1999. That would be the shortest arm length for an edge defender taken in the first round of an NFL draft this century, this millennium, to be especially dramatic. Arm length is not everything for an edge defender, but an arm length of just 30 7/8 inches is not ideal. Bain measured as being shorter and lighter than he was listed by Miami. He measured as being 6'2" and 1/4 of an inch and 263 pounds. However, Sonny Styles, his stock continues to rise. He measured as being 6'5" and 244 pounds with a wingspan of 80 7/8 inches. He registered a vertical jump of 43.5 inches, highest by an off-ball linebacker at an NFL scouting combine since 2003. He registered a broad jump of 11 feet and 2 inches. He registered a 40-yard dash time of 4.4 seconds. Sonny Styles on Thursday put on a show. ESPN NFL draft analyst Mel Kiper Jr., he in his latest mock 2026 NFL draft, which came out on Tuesday morning, has our team, has the Commanders at 7, taking Sonny Styles. Here were ESPN fantasy football and NFL draft analyst Field Yates, ESPN NFL analyst Mina Kimes, and ESPN NFL analyst Peter Schrager on ESPN's NFL Live on Thursday afternoon, talking Sonny Styles.
So Sonny Styles had this remarkable come-up over the past few years. He was playing safety for Ohio State in 2023. I've said this a couple times now, is that Sonny Styles, if you stacked him against all the other safeties in the class, would look like a cyborg. The interesting part is that when you stack him against all the linebackers in this class, he still looks like a cyborg. He has rare length. He's obviously extremely athletic, has natural coverage instinct, as you expect for a former safety. But where he has really impressed me, at least, is that he has figured out the running game in a hurry. He's got a quick trigger against the run. And the most improved part of his game from 2024 to 2025 is right what you see on the bottom of the screen, his tackle rate, which is tracked by our True Media stats. He had 17 missed tackles back in 2024. That number decreased all the way down to 2 in 2025. It's one thing to be able to get there and put yourself in a position to tackle. It's another thing to have the body armor and the execution to actually make those tackles. So Sonny Styles has great versatility, very unique player, who has placed himself into this top 10 conversation.
He's one of the most fundamentally sound tacklers I've watched in years. Yeah. And you alluded to his physique. I think he came in with an 80-inch plus wingspan. It shows up in the tackling.
Definitely.
And as well, you all talked about the quick trigger, the way he navigates traffic. I mean, he was like built in a lab to play linebacker. I do think, however, with him, as we start talking about picking in the top 10, you have to weigh your conviction in the player and how good he is at the position with positional value and also the development curve. Linebackers sometimes take a minute in the NFL. I think about a player like Devin Lloyd, who was a first-round draft pick, and really at the end of his contract is when he started to, his rookie contract, shine to the point where now he is the most attractive free agent. So I think if your team thinking about picking Styles there, not only are you not reaping really the benefits of getting a first-round edge at a lesser price compared to veterans, but you also have to ask, can he be good immediately? Now, I do think he can, but that's part of the calculus that goes into this, especially if you're a team like Washington, by the way, that desperately needs pass rush. Are you comfortable spending a pick that high on an off-ball linebacker? It's a conversation that has to be had.
February 26th, right? Put it in the books right now because we all fall in love with draft prospects. Other guys have crushes on Sidney Sweeney and Halle Berry. I am in full-blown crush mode with Sonny Styles. Yeah. I love watching the highlights, and I love everything I'm hearing from teams.
Well, here's what excites me about the Commanders at 7. Assuming that the Las Vegas Raiders, with the number 1 overall pick, take Indiana University quarterback Fernando Mendoza, the Commanders, if they stick and pick at 7, are guaranteed to be able to choose from at least 2 of the following players: University of Miami edge defender Rueben Bain Jr., Texas Tech edge defender David Bailey, Ohio State safety Caleb Downs, Ohio State linebackers Orville Reese and Sonny Styles, Ohio State receiver Carnell Tate, and Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. 7 exciting, enticing, intriguing guys right there. At least 2 of them will be available at 7, assuming that the Raiders take Mendoza at 1. Hello and welcome to this Friday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Stunning news on Thursday night. The Commanders reportedly are releasing center Tyler Biadasz. This news has come out of nowhere. They, in March 2024, signed him as an unrestricted free agent. He, over the last 2 regular seasons, played in and started 31 of a possible 34 games. And he, for the Commanders, was a solid, dependable center. Wasn't great, but he was pretty good. Now, he did end the 2025 regular season on the reserve/injured list, on which he was placed on December 31st due to knee and ankle injuries. So perhaps the Commanders releasing him is health-related. Also, perhaps the Commanders releasing Biadasz is salary cap related. Per overthecap.com, the Commanders, by designating Biadasz as a post-June 1st cut, would save $8.285 million with a $2.7 million cap charge. And look, it may also be that the Commanders weren't pleased with Biadasz's play this past season, but this is a shocker. The Commanders reportedly are releasing Tyler Biadasz. Man, we as fans and media members all know nothing. Nobody outside of the team saw this coming, reported that this was coming, hinted at this coming, or anything like that. Also, the NFL Players Association has come out with the NFLPA's 4th batch of NFL player report cards for teams for various things. Now, these report cards now are supposed to be private instead of public. This following a grievance filed by the NFL, which claimed that the publicizing of the report cards violated the collective bargaining agreement. But ESPN senior NFL writer Kaylin Kaler, she on Thursday afternoon came out with a report with various notes from the report cards, including the Commanders ranking number 3 in the NFL in overall team report card. So here now is the progress. The Commanders for the 2022 season ranked number 32 out of 32 NFL teams in overall report card. The Commanders for the 2023 season ranked number 32 out of 32 NFL teams in overall report card. But the Commanders for the 2024 season ranked number 11 out of 32 NFL teams in overall report card. And the Commanders for the 2025 season ranked number 3 out of 32 NFL teams in overall report card. That very much is a reflection of the work being done by team ownership, the Josh Harris Group. I give the Harris Group a lot of credit, from dead last DFL for the 2022 and 2023 seasons to number 11 for the 2024 season, and now number 3 for the 2025 season. Well, we now are just 10 days away from the start of the NFL's legal tampering period on Monday, March 9th at 12 p.m. Eastern. The legal tampering period is the true start of free agency in an NFL offseason. The Commanders, for a 3rd consecutive offseason, have a lot of free agents. Next segment, all 22 style analysis of the Commanders' many free agents this offseason, as we'll speak with our good friend, Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. Mark will discuss whether our team, with the majority of its free agents this offseason, will re-sign them or allow them to leave. Mark will provide analysis of the Commanders' major pending unrestricted free agents in quarterback Marcus Mariota, receiver Deebo Samuel Sr, tight end Zach Ertz, left guard Chris Paul, and linebacker Bobby Wagner. Mark will explain why he believes that the team will acquire disgruntled San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Aiyuk. And we, with Mark, will have some scheduled fun regarding the NFL on Wednesday morning announcing that the Commanders in the 2026 regular season will play a game in London, as Mark is from England, though he now lives in Sweden. Mark Bullock, next segment. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Wizards. They on Thursday afternoon announced having signed Jameer Watkins to a standard NBA contract. I'll explain why that's notable. And our Wizards on Thursday night got smashed at the Atlanta Hawks 126-96 in a proper performance in the tank. Before we get to feedback, some college basketball news. Georgetown on Thursday evening announced that one of the Hoyas' best players, 6'4" Arizona transfer KJ Lewis, is done for the season. This due to a left ankle injury that he suffered in a 76-60 loss to Marquette at Capital One Arena this past Tuesday night. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Feedback on this podcast 5-year anniversary, which was this past Sunday. Email from a very loyal supporter of this podcast, Dr. George Verghese, who operates the Mid-Atlantic Skin Surgery Institute of Maryland. Dr. Verghese, an elite dermatologist, writes the doctor, "Congrats, Al. Pleasure to support you. I'm feeling the love." At number 7, surprise pick. Thank you for that, Dr. Verghese. And by love, he, of course, meant Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. Trust me, we on this podcast will be having the Jeremiah Love conversation. That is a fascinating conversation. Should the Commanders take a running back in Jeremiah Love, who is being talked about as like generational with their number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft? Email from another doctor, Dr. CCB, writes the doctor, "Galdi, I hope you and your family are doing well. Congratulations on reaching the 5-year anniversary of the podcast. What an incredible milestone. I wanted to follow up on the email that you read from Deb. I could truly relate to so much of what she shared. You are always thoughtful in what you produce, and your dedication to both the podcast and your audience shines through every single day. As an African-American woman working in a successful yet often stressful profession, human resources at JBAB, and as someone who also loves sports, your podcast serves as a much-needed decompressor for me. It's part of my daily routine and something I genuinely look forward to. If I were a team captain, my picks would be first pick, Galdi, second pick, Sheehan, and third pick, B. Mitch and Finley. I'm especially grateful that you follow DC sports so closely, so the rest of us don't have to. Keep up the outstanding work. I'll continue being that early morning warrior right there with you. Warmly, Dr. CCB. Well, thank you very much, Dr. CCB. What a nice email. That is quite the honor, being the top pick among myself, Sheehan, and B. Mitch and Finley. I'll have to rub it in those guys' faces that I was the top pick. Email from Joel Charney. Writes Joel, "Hi, Al. Congratulations on reaching the 5th anniversary of your podcast. You led last Friday's show with a listener message and an honest, heartfelt reply. I won't duplicate what Deb wrote. It's easier to say that I agree with every word. And I appreciate your account of your firing from WTEM. I never understood that and was worried that your move to podcasting was too big of a risk, but you have proved me wrong. Apart from the financial risk, I wonder if you miss the camaraderie of working with a group of colleagues. My entire career was in the field of international relief and development work, and I was never tempted to go on my own as a consultant, as so many did sooner or later. I actually liked working in organizations, partially in the cause of building institutions that would make a difference over many years, and partially for the collegial environment. I would have found it lonely and isolating to work by myself day after day. Since you built many great relationships at 980, I wonder how you feel about that now. Best wishes for continued success. Thank you very much for the email, Joel. The number one thing that I miss about working in radio is the people, the camaraderie, the, wait for it, brotherhood. Can I use that word? Am I allowed to use that word? I'll have to ask Commanders head coach Dan Quinn for permission. But yes, the brotherhood. There is a lot about radio that I do not miss, but I do miss the people, the brotherhood. My coworkers at 980 did become like brothers. I know that is cliche, but that is true. And working there in a lot of ways was like being in a locker room, was like being in a frat house. And I have so many good memories and so many discussions that I'll always remember and so many inside jokes that I'll always remember. And, these are relationships that will last forever. Relationships that carry over on this podcast when I have these guys on. I feel like when I have these guys on, you can tell, like, like there is something special there. There is a bond there, a connection there. But, as the station got run into the ground, okay, there were fewer and fewer people left working at the station. And so the atmosphere, by the time that I left in January 2021, was a shell of what the atmosphere was at its peak. It's kind of like being a Maryland fan who yearns for Maryland being in the ACC. I went to Maryland during some of its peak basketball years in the ACC. I went to Maryland 1997 to 2001. But the ACC that some Maryland fans still pine for doesn't exist anymore and hasn't existed in years. That ACC is gone, and the same thing, sadly, is true of the radio station. By the way, regarding radio fading and podcasting rising, I thought that I'd share this on the podcast. I came across this the other day. I read to you from an awfulannouncing.com piece published on February 25th. Quote, new data from Edison Research shows that for the first time in the final months of 2025, podcasts surpassed talk radio as a share of overall spoken word audio listening. The data, which compares how Americans aged 13 and older listen to podcasts versus AM/FM radio, showed more toward podcasts for the first time. The Edison data appears to only measure audio consumption, end quote. So there you go. Podcasts have officially surpassed radio. And if you enjoy this podcast, check out BGO Blind Pig, the official podcast of BGObsession.com. BGO Blind Pig is great. It is a roundtable discussion of the Washington Commanders. It's like you and a bunch of your buddies who are Commanders fans are hanging out and talking about the team. The conversation is smart and fun and respectful. Enhance your Commanders content. Check out the BGO Blind Pig podcast. If you're on YouTube right now, just type in BGO Blind Pig and give it a look/listen. You can find the BGO Blind Pig podcast on YouTube and on any major podcast provider. Make BGObsession.com the home for your burgundy and gold obsession, and make the BGO Blind Pig podcast part of your Commanders podcast rotation. Hey, if you happen to be listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can write a review of the podcast saying that you like it. The review can be just a sentence or two, but the reviews help out the podcast a lot. Thank you for doing them. The 2026 NFL Scouting Combine at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis started this past Monday, February 23rd, is running through this Monday, March 2nd. The Combine, of course, is part of the process for the NFL Draft. The 2026 NFL Draft now is less than 2 months away. Will take place April 23rd through the 25th in Pittsburgh. In our more immediate future is the start of the NFL's new league year. 2 Tuesdays ago, February 17th, was the first day of the window within which NFL teams can place franchise tags and transition tags on players this offseason. That window goes from Tuesday, February 17th to this Tuesday, March 3rd at 4 p.m. Eastern. From Monday, March 9th at 12 p.m. Eastern until Wednesday, March 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern, have what is known as the legal tampering period, the period during which teams are permitted to contact and enter into contract negotiations with the certified agents of external players who are set to become unrestricted free agents this offseason. And then on Wednesday, March 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern, have the start of the NFL's 2026-2027 league year, which marks when teams this offseason can begin officially signing external players who have become unrestricted free agents via expiring contracts, and marks when teams this offseason can officially begin executing trades of players. The Washington Commanders so far this offseason have agreed on re-signings with 2 of the team's pending unrestricted free agents. The team on February 10th announced having signed punter Tressway to a contract extension, what is a reported 1-year, $3.038 million extension. And general manager Adam Peters, he this past Tuesday afternoon during his press conference at the Combine confirmed reports on Monday afternoon that the team has agreed with tackle/guard Andrew Wiley on a contract extension, what is a reported 2-year, $7.5 million extension. But the Commanders still have a ton of pending free agents. The following Commanders offensive players are set to be unrestricted free agents in the 2026 offseason. Quarterbacks Marcus Mariota, Josh Johnson, and Jeff Driscoll. Receivers Deebo Samuel Sr., Noah Brown, Traylon Burks, and Chris Moore. tight end Zach Ertz, running backs Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, and Chase Edmonds, and offensive linemen Chris Paul, Trent Scott, and George Fant. The following Commanders' defensive players are set to be unrestricted free agents in the 2026 offseason. Interior defensive linemen Eddie Goldman, Shai Tuttle, and Sheldon Day. Linebacker Bobby Wagner. Edge defenders Dietrich Wise Jr., Von Miller, Jacob Martin, Preston Smith, Drake Jackson, and Jalen Holmes. And cornerbacks Jonathan Jones, Noah Igbenogany, and Antonio Hamilton Sr. And running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. and kicker Jake Moody. They are set to be restricted free agents in the 2026 offseason. What is Adam Peters thinking with the team's many pending free agents? Are more contract extensions coming in the coming days? It is a pleasure to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast Commanders analyst Mark Bullock. Mark is exceptional at talking Commanders from an X's and O's standpoint. He does tremendous Commanders all 22 breakdowns. You can read his work on his Substack, Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. A lot of great content from Mark on his Substack, including his takeaways from Adam Peters and head coach Dan Quinn's combine press conferences and post-press conference sessions with reporters this past Tuesday afternoon. Mark has written for The Athletic and for The Washington Post. He also is a Commanders fan. You can follow Mark on X at Mark Bullock NFL. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How about you?
Doing well. Nice to talk to you, especially with the big news this week. The NFL on Wednesday morning announcing that the Commanders will be one of the participating teams for the 2026 NFL London games. You know London well. You're from England, though you now live in Sweden. But will Mark Bullock be in attendance at this game in London?
I don't know if I'll be in attendance yet. Maybe. I don't live in the UK anymore. I'm with my partner in Sweden. I could make it over there if I had a reason to. So maybe, but I don't know yet. But yeah, it's always cool to see your team come to your country, and the NFL UK events are always very well attended and always have lots of hype around them in the UK, and the fan base in England is growing a ton, so it's cool to see. And yeah, I'll have to see whether it's worthwhile traveling back to the UK and whenever the game is, and possibly meeting up with some people and stuff. We'll see.
I'm not sure if we've ever talked about this, but you moved from England to Sweden right around the time that it became known that then Commanders owner Dan Snyder had taken residence in England. Dan moved to England and Mark left England. Did one have anything to do with the other?
I mean, I would love to say, yeah, I just wanted to leave the country that Dan Snyder was coming to. But no, it didn't have any impact on that. Unfortunately, there's plenty of terrible people living in the UK as well that you can't really control that. But yeah, no, it would have been great to be like, no, I refuse to be around Dan Snyder in the same country as him. But no, that didn't have any impact.
Well, if you do go to the game, maybe you'll bump into Dan Snyder. Maybe you and Dan can share a pint. By the way, the stadium at which this game will be played, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the home of the NFL in the United Kingdom. So the Commanders this past November 16th had the game against the Miami Dolphins in Madrid, the 16-13 overtime loss. The stadium at which that game was played is spectacular, Bernabeu Stadium. How does Tottenham Hotspur Stadium compare with Bernabeu Stadium?
It's very, very good. And it was, I think the NFL put some money into the development of that stadium with the idea in mind that they would be able to have more of an NFL feel to it. I know that they can, it's not quite as advanced as the Madrid stadium where they can hide the pitch underneath, or sorry, the field underneath the stadium and grow the grass underneath it and bring it up when the game is ready. But what they do have is they have spare fields that they, almost like it's a carpet that they roll out of the stadium underneath one of the stands to prepare it and stuff, and they can roll in a different field. So I know they have an NFL field specifically for NFL football rather than our football or soccer, because you need different types of grass and stuff for those. So it's prepared in that way a lot better than I think the Wembley pitch or field, is. And the actual just the stadium is is second to none. It's first class in terms of its facilities and the restaurants and stuff in there, and the obviously the seats and the viewing points are all great. And that it's an odd one because it was a very expensive stadium when they first built it, but they also got a lot of outside investment where there's like a deal with Formula One where they've got like a race, like a go-kart racetrack in the stadium as well. And so they tried to make it multi-purpose, but they have investment from, as I say, Formula One's in there. The NFL has investment, so they can do NFL games and stuff like that in there. So they have a lot of outside investment to do more than just play soccer and football in there. So it's probably one of the top first class stadiums in the UK now.
All right, so for a third time in 3 off seasons with Adam Peters as GM, the Commanders have a lot of free agents. The team in the 2024 offseason allowed the overwhelming majority of their free agents to leave. The team in the 2025 offseason re-signed a good number of the free agents. What do you expect this offseason?
I think we'll see a few of them back, but I don't think it'll be like we're bringing all of them back. I don't think it's, I think last year there was a little bit of let's try to recapture the magic of 2024, and obviously that did not work out. But I think when you look at the guys that are there, like Marcus Mariota is a guy you want to have back, right? He was a pretty solid backup quarterback. He proved he could be a very good backup level quarterback, kind of almost borderline starter, and that's exactly what you want from backup quarterback. Then there's guys like Jeremy McNichols, who has never set a foot wrong whenever he's been on the field, and he is the kind of model pro, versatile, can fill in multiple different roles as a running back. He can be more of a workhorse if you need that and you have injuries to other guys. He can be a really good third down back if that's what you need, and he's a really good pass protector. So he's a guy that, cheap 1 year is no reason not to have back if you want to add a body in the backfield. And then guys like even Sheldon Day on the defensive line, like he was a guy they brought in on a 1 year deal midway through 2024, and they did the same again in 2025, and he never let them down. He's not someone that's going to be having 70 or 80% of your snaps, but he's just a depth piece that can add something to the team and be a valuable rotation piece. So I think they'll have guys like that they'll want to bring back. But I don't think it's going to be, re-sign everyone and get the old gang back together and be another year older, right? I think it's going to be, I think after this year and the season that they had, I think it's a good chance for them to say, okay, we do need to have a bit of a reset, and we understand that we can't just recapture that magic from 2024, and we need to kind of reset and try again. So I think we'll probably see them be a little bit more aggressive in pursuing outside guys than re-signing a lot of their own.
I, for a second consecutive offseason, very much want the Commanders to re-sign Marcus Mariota. Do you think that they will?
The one thing that puts me off of it is that, like, the last few days there's been talk about, like, Derek Carr coming out of retirement and Andy Dalton getting talked about in a trade. And I'm like, well, if people are that desperate, then maybe they might go for Marcus Mariota. But the fact that Cliff didn't get a starting head coaching job makes me think Mariota probably would be back. I think that would be the one where you'd be like, okay, he's going to go with Cliff, but he's not going to go to the Rams. They got Stafford, so I think he'll probably be back.
Much more with Mark Bullock in moments, but if you have a case, contact the NACE Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the NACE Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers, and mention that Al Galdi sent you. You could call 202-902-7611. You could also visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com, and submit for a free, no-obligation case review. The NACE Law Group, it features compassionate lawyers and zealous advocates for its clients. Led by the great Chris Nace and founded in 1979, the Nace Law Group is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. The Nace Law Group is outstanding. It will fight for you and your family. The Nace Law Group has recovered millions of dollars for the sick and injured. If you have a case, contact the Nace Law Group. We always hope that all is well with you, but if you have an issue, if you have concerns, contact the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. We're talking with Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. 3 especially notable unrestricted free agents for the Commanders this offseason are receiver Deebo Samuel, tight end Zach Ertz, and linebacker Bobby Wagner. Should the Commanders be open to re-signing any of those guys, or should the team allow each guy to leave?
I'm open to it. I mean, Zach Ertz is one where it's like he's injured and he had that injury very, very late in the year. Like, just from a timeline perspective, I don't think he's going to be signing with anyone until kind of late in training camp at best. And so that would be one where it's like, well, maybe if you have an injury on day one of training camp and you're just like, okay, well, we do need a tight end. That's one that you're like, okay, well, we know Zach Ertz and he has a relationship and we can bring him in. But I don't think he's going to be one that on, March 9th, the start of legal tampering, or March 11th, the start of the league year, they're going to be like, let's go get Zach Ertz back, right? So I don't think that's a priority. Deebo, I think, probably goes elsewhere. I know Adam Peters loves him, and I know Dan Quinn loves him, and they talk about the competitor and all that, but I think at receiver, I think their big move is going to be Brandon Aiyuk, and I thought that for a while. And so I don't know. I like their younger receivers more than I think most people do. I really like Jalen Lane. I think Luke McCaffrey can take a step forward. And we talk about, this roster is really old and they don't give the young guys any opportunities. And then we get to free agency and it's like, well, let's sign a bunch of guys and not give these young guys any more opportunities. And so I'd be cautious about blocking the pathways for guys like Lane and McCaffrey. Now, I'm not saying don't sign a receiver, but I think if you go get Brandon Aiyuk like I'm expecting to do, you've got Aiyuk and McLaurin as your 1 and 2, then that kind of leaves a bit of a pathway as a third receiver for Jalen Lane or Luke McCaffrey or even a Treylon Burks if you bring him back to kind of step up there. So I think that's kind of a set receiver room. I think if you get Aiyuk and you bring in Deebo, then suddenly you've got these 3 older receivers that are kind of blocking the pathway for those younger guys. So I think Deebo I'd move on from. Wagner's one where I think there is value to a Bobby Wagner on the roster, but I think there is a limit to how much value he brings on the field now. I think he can still be an excellent run defender. I think you can hide him a little bit with blitzes, as they did in 2024, but that kind of got exposed a bit in 2025, and he had to cover more, and he really struggled. I think if you could get him to agree to a backup mentor role or just playing on first and second down and then kind of interchanging Jordan McGee as the new Mike and kind of having a transition there, then I think you could have Bobby Wagner back. I don't think Bobby Wagner's pride of being, he's a Hall of Fame player, and I don't think he's going to let himself accept that kind of backup or transition kind of role. At which point I'm thinking, do we really want him back to kind of interrupt that pathway for McGee? So I wouldn't be desperate to bring back any of them personally.
Interesting that you have real confidence that the Commanders are going to get San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Aiyuk. So the Niners are done with him as he has become a big-time malcontent. We, on January 21st, had a joint season-ending press conference for Niners head coach and former Redskins offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan and Niners president of football operations / general manager John Lynch. We, during that presser, had this exchange with Lynch.
What is the plan for Brandon Aiyuk, and do you envision a scenario in which he's on this team next year? If so, what would that look like?
Yeah. The plan in terms of the transaction, that will come in due time. I think it's safe to say that he's played his last snap with the Niners. It's unfortunate, situation that just went awry. And, I will look long and hard at, what could have been done differently, but sometimes just doesn't work out. And I think that this was a case where that happened.
Yeah, so the Niners are done with Brandon Aiyuk, who presumably is going to be released, but he is good friends with Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels. So Daniels was Arizona State's QB1 for the 2019 through 2021 seasons. Aiyuk was a receiver for Arizona State in the 2018 and 2019 seasons. Daniels, in an appearance on the podcast Football 301 with Nate Tice in an installment that came out on February 5th, advocated for the Commanders to get Aiyuk. And then we had what we had from Adam Peters on Tuesday afternoon during his press conference at the Combine. Peters was the Niners' vice president of player personnel when they took Aiyuk with the number 25 overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft out of Arizona State. We, during the presser, had this back and forth between Niners insider Jennifer Lee Chan of NBC Sports Bay Area and Peters.
Well, Jennifer, Brandon Aiyuk is a player on another team under contract, so I can't comment on that. Second chances, yeah. I think everybody on earth deserves a second chance, and so with Kinlaw, I mean that was an interesting one. And Kinlaw earned his second chance, and really, he earned every single bit of it, and so I wouldn't kind of call his a second chance, so to speak. I think because I had the familiarity with him and understanding the type of person and player and competitor he is, that helped factor into that decision. But I think he earned every single bit of that by the way he came back from his injuries and everything to be a really, really good player. So in terms of Brandon, love the person, but can't really comment on the player.
All right, so Adam Peters on Brandon Aiyuk, quote, love the person, end quote. Aiyuk in October 2024 suffered a season-ending torn ACL and torn MCL in his right knee. Kyle Shanahan this past November confirmed that the Niners had voided the 2026 guaranteed money in the contract of Aiyuk. There is a lot to this saga, but specific to our team, you believe that it will be signing Brandon Aiyuk.
I just think the link's too obvious, and the way like Adam Peters talked about it, like obviously he was like, oh, I can't talk about Brandon Aiyuk, he's under contract with another team, and he could have just left it at that. And he started talking about like second chances, and he went on to talking about Javon Kinlaw, but then he made a point unprompted to circle back to Brandon Aiyuk and say, I love the man, or I love the person, but I can't talk about the player. And it's like, well, he didn't have to say that. To go out of his way to say, I still love the person, tells you that he's still pretty high on the person, and it's not like, oh, he was a terrible person for us and we wouldn't ever want him around. I think, just logically speaking, it's going to be such a low risk deal for them, right? Like, he's not going to be able to command a huge contract. He kind of obviously has made it known that he wants to play with Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has obviously made it known he wants to play with Brandon Aiyuk. And obviously that's not the reason that you do it. You do it because he was a very, very, very talented player, one of the top receivers in the league when healthy. And there's a chance to bring him in on a 1-year cheap prove-it contract where there's no real strings attached. You could make it very incentive-based. If he steps out of line or has any sort of issues, you cut him and move on. So there's no real anything to lose by bringing him in. And he has the connection not just with the quarterback, but with the GM who was there when they drafted him in San Francisco. So I think it just kind of makes too much sense. And the fact that Peters went out of his way to circle back on that question and say, I love the man, I think was kind of a hint to me.
Another notable Commanders player who is set to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason is left guard Chris Paul. The Commanders took Paul in the 7th round of the 2022 NFL Draft out of the University of Tulsa. So he was drafted by Washington during Ron Rivera's time as the team's head coach in charge of player personnel. Paul this past season supplanted Brandon Coleman as the starting left guard. Coleman was the team's starting left guard for the first 2 games of the 2025 regular season. Paul, for each of the Commanders' final 15 games in the 2025 regular season, was the team's starting left guard, and he, over those 15 games, played on 100% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Is Chris Paul a must re-sign, or is he someone who the Commanders should let go if he starts to get pricey?
I'd be leaning more towards the latter. I think it depends on the market. I think they'll have a certain price point for him, where they'll be like, yeah, we definitely would like him back. But the league is so starved for offensive linemen. We saw just last year, what was his name? I think Aaron Banks, who was with the 49ers, and he was a second round pick of the 49ers, but he kind of struggled and was widely considered a bust. And people were like, why is this guy? We don't want him back. Let him go in free agency. And then the Packers went and paid him nearly $20 million a year in free agency, which is absurd for a guard of what he had produced. And now he's a cut candidate this year. So that wasn't necessarily a great investment. But the fact that a team was willing to go to nearly $20 million a year on a guard that hadn't really produced much makes me concerned that Chris Paul, that he hasn't produced much throughout his career, but he had a very solid year. I feel like there might be one team that's desperate for a guard that was like, hey, he's still young and he showed good development this year, and he's a big, powerful guy. He's a good pass protector. Let's get him in. Might be willing to go to, $10 million a year on a multi-year contract, or maybe even more. And at that point, it's the Commanders are going to have a big contract to Laramie Tunsil whenever that gets done. They've already got one big contract on the line in Sam Cosmi. Tyler Biadasz is one that was a relatively big free agent contract a few years ago, and he's going to be up for a new one next year. Then they've got a first round pick invested in Josh Connolly, so there's a lot invested in that offensive line already. I don't know if they could justify going for another big offensive line contract on top of that when you have a ready-made replacement in Brandon Coleman that's on a cheap rookie contract. That if they are potentially going to be looking to run more zone scheme stuff, Coleman's a better fit for that anyway. So I think I'd be leaning more towards letting him walk if the price gets too much. And that was kind of the indication I got from Dan Quinn from his pressers the other day as well. Like he talked about, being proud of the development of Chris Paul and stuff. But when he was asked about how much of a priority he is, he stopped short of being like, yeah, he's a priority, or he didn't even say, yeah, we want him back. It was, we're still working through that stuff, and we'll see what Adam and his team come up with. When you go back to the year before, when it was like Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, it was very effusive. Yeah, we want that guy back. So it's quite a different change in tone from Dan Quinn. So I think, again, that's a hint that they think there's a certain price point they'd have him back, but I think he might get too expensive for them.
Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. Mark, thanks, and we'll talk soon.
Of course, talk soon.
All right. Hey, we on this podcast recently have had some great guests discussing the glory days of the Redskins. Episode 1250, legendary sports writer Richard Justice, who served as a Skins beat reporter and columnist and working for the Washington Post from February 1986 to July 2000. Episode 1263, former Skins GM Charlie Casserly. Well, here is an outstanding book about the glory days of the Redskins, RFK All Access, by Scott Cunningham, who served as a photographer for NFL properties for years and who photographed the Redskins extensively during their glory days in the 1980s and early 1990s. Scott, via RFK All Access, has put together a compilation of his best Redskins photos, many of which are behind-the-scenes photos. Joe Gibbs, Jack Kent Cooke, Richie Pettibone, the Hogs, the Posse, Sonny Sam and Frank, all, and so many more are featured in this book, which is 392 pages of glorious Skins history, 5 pounds of Redskins gold. If you are a serious Washington fan, if you are a Skins historian, this book is a must-have. Makes for a terrific addition to any Skins-themed man cave. Also makes for a great gift. I have the book. It is sensational. Heck, this is a book that has been endorsed by Joe Gibbs himself. Quote, "This is a great book filled with great memories," end quote. The book now is available in ebook form, and the book now is available for an all-time low price. If you have been thinking about getting the book, now is the time. Take advantage of this special sale in honor of Washington's offseason. RFK All Access. You can get the book by visiting rfkallaccess.com. And when you order the book, please mention in the notes section that Al Galdi sent you. Doing that helps out this podcast a lot. That's rfkallaccess.com, rfkallaccess.com, and mention that Al Galdi sent you.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
The Washington Wizards on January 9th announced having traded C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert to the Atlanta Hawks for Trae Young. And the Wizards on Thursday night got ripped by McCollum and Kispert. A 126-96 loss at the Hawks in the second of two consecutive games at the Hawks. So the first was a 119-98 loss at the Hawks on Tuesday night. So our Wizards lost the two games at the Hawks by a combined 51 points. That, my friends, is how you tank. The Wizards in the NBA's 2025-2026 regular season now are 16-42, fourth worst record in the NBA. And this loss does make the inevitable official. The Wizards have clinched finishing with a losing record for an eighth consecutive regular season. The Wizards have not finished with a winning record for a regular season since going 43-39 in the 2017-2018 regular season, which ended a streak of 5 consecutive non-losing regular seasons for the Wizards. But yeah, 8 consecutive losing regular seasons now for the Wizards. So the franchise record for consecutive losing regular seasons is 9. The Bullets over the 1987, 1988 through 1995, 1996 regular seasons had 9 consecutive losing regular seasons. So the Wizards, for this loss at the Hawks on Thursday night, were without a bunch of key guys. Keyshawn George did not play due to a left knee contusion. Alex Sarr did not play for a 6th consecutive game due to a right hamstring strain. Anthony Davis did not play for a 9th time in 9 games since being acquired by the Wizards via trade on February 5th. What was 2026 NBA trade deadline day. He's not playing due to a finger sprain on his left hand. D'Angelo Russell did not play for a 9th time in 9 games since being acquired by the Wizards via the Anthony Davis trade. Russell is being listed as not being with the team, and he may never play for the Wizards. Trae Young did not play for a 22nd time in 22 games since being acquired by the Wizards via trade on January 9th. He's not playing due to a right knee sprain and a right quadriceps contusion. And Cam Whitmore is done for the season due to right shoulder deep vein thrombosis. So the Wizards in this game never held a lead. And former Wizards Corey Kispert and C.J. McCollum combined for 58 of the Hawks' 126 points. Corey Kispert, he in 28 minutes, 4 seconds as a reserve, had 33 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 assist versus 2 turnovers. He went 6 for 11 on threes, 5 for 8 on twos, and 5 for 5 on free throws. C.J. McCollum, he in 26:08 as a starter, had 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists versus no turnovers. He went 7 for 11 on twos, did go just 2 for 8 on threes, and just 5 for 7 on free throws. But also with the Wizards on Thursday was them on Thursday afternoon announcing having signed Jameer Watkins to a standard NBA contract. Now, Watkins on Thursday night was a DNP-CD, but the Wizards signing Watkins to a standard NBA contract comes off them last Saturday evening announcing having re-signed Tristan Vukcevic to a multi-year contract. It is nice to see the Wizards liking guys taken with recent second-round picks enough to be re-signing them. The Wizards took Vukcevic with the number 42 overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft. The Wizards took Watkins with the number 43 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft. The Wizards this past June 25th took Walter Clayton Jr. out of the University of Florida with the number 18 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft, but they traded his draft rights to the Utah Jazz for the draft rights for the University of Illinois' Will Riley, who the Jazz took with the number 21 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft, and the Wizards in the trade got the number 43 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft and second-round picks in the 2031 and 2032 NBA drafts, and the Wizards, with that number 43 overall pick, took Jameer Watkins. So Watkins played college basketball for 5 seasons, played for VCU for the 2020, 2021, and 2022-2023 seasons, and played for Florida State for the 2023, 2024, and 2024-2025 seasons. He missed all of the 2021-2022 season due to a torn right ACL that he suffered in September 2021. The Wizards this weekend have one game, home to the Toronto Raptors, Saturday night at 7. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Monday show, episode 1271. We'll have a lot for you on the Washington Commanders. Also on Monday's show, I'll talk Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards, and college basketball. The Caps this weekend have games on back-to-back nights. Home to the Vegas Golden Knights Friday night at 7 and at the Montreal Canadiens Saturday night at 7. The Wizards this weekend have one game, home to the Toronto Raptors Saturday night at 7. And college basketball this weekend includes Maryland home to Rutgers Sunday at noon, Georgetown at Xavier Saturday afternoon at 1:30. Big game for Virginia, number 11 Virginia at number 1 Duke Saturday at noon. Virginia Tech at number 18 North Carolina Saturday night at 8:30. VCU home to Fordham Saturday afternoon at 12:30. George Mason home to St. Bonaventure Saturday afternoon at 2. George Washington home to Dayton Friday night at 7. And Navy's regular season finale home to Colgate Saturday afternoon at 4. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
In terms of Brandon, love the person, but can't really comment on the player.